right, hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Earth's Mightiest Comics. This is the show where every week we go and we talk about some recent comics from the past couple of weeks or so. We give you our thoughts and our various opinions on them, and we let you know if we think you should be reading them, if we recommend them to all of you. This week, it's that first week slump of the month, as I like to call it. There's not kind of too much in the way of huge big things, but there are some here and there. We do have another core issue of Absolute Power to talk about. Got some stuff with Avengers, got some stuff with Hulk and the origin of Eldest, issues of like Daredevil, Scarlett, but we're going to start out with the latest book, as has been kind of common for us, from the current new X-Men era. This is Uncanny X-Men #1, written by Gail Simone, and the artist is David Marquez. Now, we're now about a month deep into the new X-Men era here. We're about to start seeing some of these titles get issue #2s coming up. So we are officially kind of, I would say entrenched, not completely, but quite a decent amount into the new X-Men era. And up to this point, I feel like I've kind of been repeating myself a lot with the X-Men stuff recently, and that I feel like I haven't disliked any of it really. There's been stuff I've liked more than others, but I do think across the board, I have had some questions about what the core like premise and hook for these books are, like what the mission statements are, kind of what the hooks are to keep me engaged in the books, right? I think core X-Men and Phoenix didn't really have that too much for me. I could see the hooks there in NYX, they just didn't necessarily click with me. And I do think the premise and the mission statement of X-Force was decent. But again, I didn't love that issue as an individual thing. So going into this month, I was starting to feel a little bit more, it's not that I wasn't, looking forward to new books, or it's not that it's not that I was actively not looking forward to new X-Men books, but I didn't really have quite the same level of excitement about the new X-Men books as I did like a month ago when that first X-Men book dropped. It is for that reason that I am very excited to say I cannot adequately explain, I think, how much I absolutely fucking loved this issue. This is actually, right off the bat, this is my pick of the week. I thought this was genuinely like basically a perfect superhero team book. Also, probably my favorite cover of the week. I love that cover. Like, it looks sick. Mm-hmm. And so this is a creative team. The art is fantastic. David Marquez does a great job on the art. And Gail Simone, for the most part, I've really liked the work of hers that I've read. But even then, I wasn't like super pumped for this book. But I would say this is also like, in terms of team lineup, this is probably the book, the X-Men book with the biggest draw in terms of team lineup. Because this is all, for the most part, pretty well-known characters. I mean, in this issue in particular, the main ones we really get here are Wolverine, Rogue, and Gambit. There's a guest appearance by Nightcrawler. We know that Jubilee will be coming into this book here at some point, because she's also on the cover, although she is not actually in this issue. Okay, plot-wise, it starts out at the X-Mansion. There's some new villain there who has essentially, she's stripping the X-Mansion for parts, essentially, and turning it into just this holding facility for mutants. She wants to capture all these mutants and just throw them there and keep them there and kind of turn, the former home of the X-Men into this just place where they have no hope anymore. Kind of really, and to remind them of that fact by placing it in the X-Mansion. So we don't get very much of that. It cuts pretty soon. We do know there's already somebody she's captured and holding there. We don't know who it is. This has been teased a couple times, but we don't actually know the actual person underneath the mask. They're like completely just tied down to the floor, and they have this big mask over their head so we can't see them. And then, we cut to Logan. He's around, he's visiting an old friend, and then while he's in the area, this is in New Mexico or something, I think, the first part of this issue taking place, at least. Most of this is seemingly going to be set in Louisiana, but this opening issue, I believe, is set in New Mexico. So while Logan is there, he runs into Rogue and Gambit. And they're like, all right, Logan, thanks for meeting us up. Thanks for meeting up with us here. You want to go help us fight this dragon? And then there's a big fight with this big fucking cool looking dragon. I think it has a name.
Dragon snake thing, honestly, yeah.
Yeah, a Saturang is the dragon's name. And it also it has one of the eyes of Agamotto. I didn't realize there were two eyes of Agamotto, but there are. Sirens has one of them. So it's a big fight. I think everybody gets a good moment in. It's a fun fight. I think the action's staged very well. I think it's cool to look at. I think it's really fun, and it culminates in this incredible moment, which has single-handedly made Gambit my favorite character of this book already. I have never had anything against Gambit, but I haven't read very much Gambit, so I didn't really have strong feelings on this character as a whole. But this moment is so fucking cool, where he manages to with the help of, so he gets Rogue and Wolverine to bait the dragon into a certain position so that Gambit can use one of his cards. He has access. He can see the point where the Eye of Agamotto is. He can use one of his cards to take it down. He, like, sleight of hand gets it and then essentially barters with this dragon and, like, successfully strikes a deal with it in, like, the most badass way. It's awesome. This is such a cool Gambit moment. It single-handedly made him the star of this issue, I think. So then it cuts to, we get after that, Rogue gets a call from Cyclops, who essentially asked them to go to this hospital to go and visit this sick, dying kid from some terminal illness, probably cancer. I don't know if they specifically state it, but it probably is cancer. So they all go there. What I really liked here, it's a small character moment, but immediately upon entering the room, Logan, like, he's trying to kind of keep this kid's spirits up, because this kid is like the X-Men's biggest fan. He loves all of them. And so Logan's trying to keep this kid's spirit up, but he's talking to the doctor as well and is like, hey, are the parents here? You might want to get them quick. Because he immediately, again, it's not explicitly said to the audience, but if you know anything about Wolverine, you can tell, like, it's a nice character moment where he immediately knows that this kid is dying and dying fast and is going to die soon. Like, he can, because of his heightened senses, he can, like, smell it or whatever. He knows immediately that the kid's about to die. And so right as this kid is about to die, he kind of goes into this weird trance where he then exposits about something. Hang on, I know one of the issue solicitations has the name of it here. But it's essentially this threat coming for the mutants. It's the Endling, which is seemingly a mutant that will kind of end all of mutant kind. And so it's like, beware the Endling, beware the Endling. And actually even the dragon itself, Saturang, mentions this as well. It's like, yeah, I can tell you something's coming for you guys. It's the Endling. Look out. It's coming for you guys. So this freaks them out, kind of. And then, Rogue in particular is very distraught about this kid dying, because the kid dies shortly after that. And then they take a trip to Louisiana, where they're kind of setting up their base. And then as they're kind of sitting around the campfire, just having a couple beers, a couple of other mutants pop out, and they're like, hey, what's up? We need your help. And then that's where the issue ends. So ultimately, for me, this is everything that I wanted to see in this X-Men era. And it's something that I haven't really vocalized, because it's kind of been hard for me to even pinpoint what it is that's not been clicking with me about a lot of this era so far. But this immediately, for one thing, it sets up a lot of very clear hooks that are, I think, very engaging. It sets up at least two of them, with the X-Mansion thing and this Endling thing. And both of them, I'm curious to see, where those plot points go. I think the setup is interesting there. But I think the big thing for me this issue is, I think the characters here are just so rock solid. I think I'm not super familiar with Rogue or Gambit, again, as I kind of mentioned with Gambit earlier, but they all feel super, super well in character here. I think that's most evident right after the kid dies, because Logan, he gets Rogue's grief, and he's also been around so much death that he kind of knows himself. Like, it's not that he's, like, desensitized to it, but he also knows that it's more productive for him in particular to just move on and just get on to the next thing and try and, figure stuff out and going forward. And then Gambit, you have the more lighthearted guy. He's trying to lift Rogue up and lift her spirits, and, he doesn't take anything quite as serious. And so I think all three of it, it's just a trifecta of really great character writing there. Not to mention the action sequence that I think is fantastic, super cool. Again, stellar moment for Gambit. And then the other thing that I really, really love is, finally, there's some, like, emotional weight and shit to Krakoa ending. Because that's something that I've never even really outwardly said on this podcast here, but I think, like, that's actually been something that has been kind of bugging me about this era, is that, like, yes, people mention Krakoa here and there, but none of the mutants seem to really be bothered by the fact that it's gone. like the main X-Men team kind of just immediately, because it's led by Scott, and they even make reference to this in this issue, like Scott's immediately set something up. Wolverine's immediately like, the three of us do not want to go and work on his team right now. We got to process Krakoa still. Like, it's a whole thing. And actually, potentially even setting up maybe some rivalry between the two teams at some point. It's not outwardly here, but I can see there being potentially some antagonism going forward between those teams. But so the fact that, like, the X-Men book didn't really reference Krakoa too much outside of, like, the Orcus people who are turning into mutants themselves. That's not really a Krakoa-specific thing. That's more Orcus. Phoenix, like, basically just completely ignored Orcus. NYX, like, yes, it did explore some stuff post-Orcus, but it's also through the lens, at least of that first issue, of Kamala Khan, who literally, like, the day she found out that she was a mutant was the day that Krakoa fell. So she didn't really get to experience the entirety of Krakoa. It doesn't have as much weight for her. And then X-Force also doesn't really reference Krakoa that much. So to see mutants finally dealing with the emotional weight of Krakoa, I feel that made this book, Uncanny X-Men, the X-Men book that we have needed for this era. And so I think that worked really well with it. I think also, again, the different reactions of those characters to that, like Rogue trying to really process that after she found this, great community. Gambit, again, being kind of the more lighthearted, just like, got to keep going, not think about it too much. And then Logan, who always, from the very beginning of Krakoa, knew that it was temporary. He referenced that many times in the Krakoan era, where he had seen enough kind of mutant safe havens to know that one would eventually end. And so he was like, well, I'm going to enjoy it while it's here. So I think all of that character writing, incredible across the board, really cool action sequence, really great art, and really good hooks to keep me engaged for what the future of that series is going to be like, made me just think this was an incredible, like, perfect X-Men issue that I really, really loved.
I don't have as much to say at this at all. Simply just, like, honestly, I don't know. I thought it was all right. I didn't, like, overly love it. I think it was not what I was expecting at all, honestly. I was expecting, for Jubilee to be in it, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, like, yeah, the best known, so I could understand why they'd get the most screen time or whatever. I feel like Nightcrawler is pretty well known, but he wasn't in that much, honestly. That's, like, I don't really care about that too much. But honestly, like, yeah, I just really wasn't expecting this. I was expecting it to be a little bit more like the X-Men book, where it was like a team of them going up, like, possibly saving mutants or something like that. I really, the whole dragon thing kind of, like, came out of nowhere for me. I was like, what the like, minute Logan's visiting, like, a friend that's about to die, and then the next he's, like, just, like, somewhere else about to fight a dragon. I was like, what? That was a very weird transition there, but okay. And yeah, I still don't understand why they fought the dragon, honestly. Yeah, then they went to the hospital thing, which, I mean, honestly, I thought that was fine. That's, like, a very, like, I don't know. I want to say, like, that's a very superhero thing to do, to, like, visit a kid in a hospital or whatever, like, very, like, that's fine and all, but, like, I don't know. I don't care. I really don't have much to say on that.
Wonder Woman literally did it earlier this year as well. That
I will say, though, I thought, right, so I understood the part where Wolverine was like, you need to get the parents here, like without actually saying it, like, he doesn't have a lot of time left, right?
Yeah.
But then I thought, right, and I could be wrong on this, but isn't, like, Rogue, he touched Rogue, right?
I think so, yeah.
Didn't that, like, essentially kill him? Which is why Rogue got, like, super, super down about it, because she essentially killed him?
I don't know. Maybe
right, isn't that her powers? Like, she, like, saps away, like, energy or whatever.
Yes, but I'm assuming, and I would have to go back and double check this, but I'm assuming she was, like, gloved up. And if it
she wasn't.
Oh, she wasn't. Okay.
No.
Well, then maybe. I don't know. Because that definitely seemed like it sent the kid into the vision, but I didn't clock that as actually killing him.
Well, yeah, exactly. So that's why I was like, I'm not too sure, because he I know for a fact he touched her hand,
yeah,
and then he started spewing all that stuff, like saying all that stuff, and, like, Wolverine, like, yelled to the doctor, like, if you got a blue button, press it.
Yeah,
like, he basically just killed himself, because they all, like, literally, he touched the hand, and then it pans to her face, looking, like, super worried, and then he goes into that whole spiel with the ending thing. So it's like, okay, and so that's why I thought, like, she took it so, like, to heart.
Yeah.
With his death.
I mean, maybe. I also don't know. It's possible. I can't remember. Rogue might have control of her powers with that right now as well. Okay. I'm not positive. That could have changed, or that could have never been the case. But I'm I thought that she had kind of gotten that under control. Maybe not though. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. See, I don't know honestly. I just know that that was part of her power set essentially. And then yeah, I really just I thought this was okay. I didn't overly love this. I thought it was just fine. It was a fine read. It wasn't boring by any means. Honestly, I was just like a bit lost with the whole dragon fight. Honestly, don't know what to include that. I think the characters are fine, and yeah, pretty much that's really it. I think it was fine. Yeah, it was all right. I like honestly like 7.
I am giving it a 10. I think this is basically perfect. It's an easy 10 for me. To your point about it, kind of you thinking or you expecting it to kind of be more like X-Men, the other series, I'm really glad that it wasn't, because this to me, like, this is what I wanted from this era. A very character-based and character-focused series that explores everybody just being sad about Krakoa. Everybody in this issue is so sad, Sebastian. And like that is what I was hoping to explore on some level in this era. And so I'm really glad this one did it. And I think it did it in a very satisfying way immediately right at the bat. And I'm so excited to read more of this series. I think it's just genuinely, it's jumped up to like the top of my most, like towards the top of my most anticipated books of every month. I'm really excited for the rest of the series.
All right, let's go to Ain't No Grave.
Okay, this is Ain't No Grave number 4, written by Scotty Young, and the artist is Jorge Corona. Now, this is, I mentioned this briefly last week in the outro. This is an issue that has basically no dialogue. It's not technically completely dialogueless, because the very last page, it's a double page spread where, not to jump right to the end, but Death and Ryder meet up finally, and Death says, "Hello, Ryder." And those are the only 2 words in the entire book. Everything else, it's just art. And as a result, it is a fantastic showcase of Jorge Corona's art, which is spectacular, as it's always been. Essentially, it's after the end of last issue where Ryder got tossed off that like casino boat. She's just kind of going around and trying to get to Death. She's kind of exploring this little, abandoned town where she sees this like kid come in and then like run away and get kidnapped by this like demon thing. Yeah. And then she goes up this like tower and gets teleported to this other town. At which point, there's like somebody there who like turns into like Sandman and then turns into Death. And that's, I think, mostly what this issue kind of was. It was, I will say, like, I do like this. I think it's good. And that double page spread at the end where she runs into Death, stunning. It looks incredible and it's very cool. It's a very cool moment. But I definitely did find myself a little bit confused and disoriented. But I think that's okay in a series like this, because this is not supposed to be a world that humans should ever see, right? It's the realm of death. And so the rules of that realm likely wouldn't make sense to us as, mortal beings that are alive. And so I think actually, I mean, I would assume that it was an intentional choice to kind of intentionally disorient the reader through that, because it just, like, nothing in this issue kind of makes sense, right? And I'm talking even architecturally, like, and the way that you kind of get from place to place, this is stuff that just, as, human living beings, we're kind of not programmed to understand. And I think if that's what it was trying to convey, then it nailed it. It did lead to me being a little bit confused about what the plot of this issue actually was. But as a showcase of Jorge Corona's art, where Ryder is just moving through this world and, ultimately going and having the start of her confrontation with Death, I think it's a very effective use of that. And the art's fantastic. And I do think, like, again, yep. I think this issue has been this series has been structured very smartly, in that the first issue was just setting up the premise and everything. Second issue was kind of introducing us to this realm of death, and showing Ryder kind of navigating it. The third issue, I think, did a really good job of world building via kind of one avenue, right, where we see kind of one slice of the world, and I think that actually can be more effective in world building than just seeing kind of brief glimpses of a whole lot of it. So I think that last issue did a really good job of world building and showing how weird this whole realm is. And then this issue, I think, did a great job of providing the disorientation of that whole realm. And I don't have much to say besides that. I think it's a very solid issue. I'm looking forward to the finale, which is the next issue. This is the second to last issue. Yep. And hopefully it's good.
So, all right. I think this one was good. I think it was good. I loved the beginning of where she like went into the saloon and just started drinking and just like basically just drinking and like reminiscing kind of like about the past. In my mind, that's kind of what it seemed like, of like when she and kind of when she was leaving. And then yeah, it went to the child thing and all that stuff. And at that point, I actually kind of wish there was some dialogue. I think it got hurt a bit because of the fact that like it left it, for me at least, it left it a bit too open ended. Like when you do it just pure like no dialogue, right? You kind of leave it up to the reader to like kind of fill in the blanks a bit, you know. And so I think with that one and the way it like was transitioned and how it all went down, I think it left it too open ended to the point where I was like, I don't really understand what exactly is going on right now. And so that's where I think some dialogue would have actually helped. I still think it like overall, I still think the art was great and it for the most part got its point across. But like towards that middle part, I would have liked some dialogue to at least explain like what exactly is going on, like why, like who was this like music man dude that made the tower collapse, and then like what was that other guy with the tea kettle that turned into sand? Like what did she? I don't even remember what she gave him. Like she put something in the cup.
I think it was like a coin, or it was probably the marker that she got from the casino last issue.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah. And so like I like at that point, I wish there was a bit like one or two lines, just kind of like saying something. I don't know, just explain a little bit. But yeah, I still, for the most part, I still really like this one. I still think the art was great. I loved the ending page of Death. I think he looked very, very good. And then yeah, I loved the beginning. I think that part definitely did not need the dialogue. The middle part for me is where it lost me a bit. And so yeah, I think this one was. Besides that, I think this one was very good, and I gave it an 8.
I also am giving it an 8. Let's go and do Blue Beetle here, Sebastian. This is Blue Beetle number 11, written by Josh Trujillo, and the artist is Adrian Gutierrez. This is the finale of Blue Beetle for now. I think it's very likely that this will get relaunched at some point. I don't know why it stopped here, because DC doesn't seem to be as antsy as Marvel is with like constantly rebooting stuff when it's not selling amazingly. I think this was kind of selling okay, but probably not to the same level as a lot of other books. But regardless, like, you know, DC very often will just let books like this just play out for a while and kind of build an audience naturally over time that way. I think it's been very successful for them. So I am a little bit confused as to why this one was kind of cut short, but essentially, like, there's kind of a lot of scenes here, but it's pretty simple in terms of plot. It is essentially Jaime waiting and kind of trying to get to a meeting with his friends to then in turn, hopefully, you know, get accepted into college and start their kind of, you know, their time at college. And so, you know, on the way, like, his family comes to visit him and he's trying to kind of, you know, ditch them so we can go and get to, you know, his friends so he can be there and on time and everything. There's a thing where Victoria Cord gets like ousted from her company because of the whole Pinnacle debacle. And then Uli shows up and just makes out with Jaime. After letting him know that the fucking God, I don't remember what they're called.
The green people.
Yeah, they're going to be staying on Earth. And then there's also a brief action sequence with one of the other Beetles beating up Praying Mantis.
Yep.
And that's kind of it. They do also, though, that's right, that's what the other big scene was, is that Madame Xanadu talks to one of the other supporting characters in this book and is basically like, hey, Jaime's gonna be in trouble. There's a lot of shit coming your guys' way. It could fucking destroy the whole world. The Blood Scarab is gonna come back. Like, they revived the host of the Blood Scarab, which, by the way, not a huge fan of, because that does then kind of take away all the emotional weight of Jaime actually killing somebody. Again, not like it was Kaji that did it, but like Jaime was still, you know, in the suit when that happened. That is one thing just in this run as a whole that I've been fairly disappointed by. I don't feel like they ever had enough. I don't think they ever really focused on the emotional ramifications of Jaime killing Javier. And so I was a little bit disappointed by that still. But yeah, essentially, it seems like the Blood Scarab is like fighting alongside the other Beetles against like some big army of people.
To me, from that little like future vision, it looked like it was the green people.
I thought so too, yeah. So, and this actually checks out because Ted Cord, not too long ago, was saying like, hey, you got some serious shit coming your way, Jaime. And really all we had in between this point and that point was the Pinnacle thing. And like, yeah, that was kind of a mess, but it was what, like 3 issues? It was like a 3-issue arc. So clearly there felt like there was more to it. And so it does seem like it's setting up more stuff going forward. But for now, this series is wrapped up. And I think, like, on the whole, I do think this series has some very high points. I think the art was very good throughout the entire thing. But ultimately, like, I don't know. There is part of me that doesn't really feel inclined to pick up the next relaunch of Blue Beetle, if indeed that does happen. Maybe I will. Who knows? I think this is solid enough, but I kind of feel the same way with this as I did when the last volume of Blade ended, where I was like, this feels like it's kind of a good hopping off point. Whereas if this series had continued, I probably would have just kept it on the poll list, just I haven't had an issue rating it or anything. But adding the next volume onto my poll list, that's something I don't know if I'm really going to do. So ultimately, all in all, I think this is a solid issue. I think this has been a solid series. I do think there have been some missed opportunities here and there. I think there have been some things that have been done very well, but ultimately I come away just feeling like the series was decent, solid enough, but not anything kind of amazing.
Yeah. I think this one was, I think it was fine. I do agree with you with the fact that like them reviving the Blood Scarab and Blood Guy, whatever. Yeah, that completely takes away the whole point of like honestly this series, which like for me was like the biggest thing about like I feel like that's what they were like constantly building up to in this series. Like the latter half was a little, it wasn't like, it would have been nice to see him dealing with it a bit more, honestly. It really felt like he just like kind of like in this one he mentions it to his dad that he still doesn't know if he can trust Kaji and stuff. Like I wish he would like, I don't know, it like haunted him a bit more than it like. I feel like it was like one issue and he was like fine after that or whatever. Like for me, that issue with Starfire, which I can't even remember, I think it was the same issue or it was the one after.
That was issue 4. That was before he killed the Blood Scarab.
Was that before? Oh,
yeah, because he was saying he thought he would have to kill him.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. But afterwards, I think after he killed him too, Starfire said something that I was just like, yeah.
Where did she go, by the way? She just kind of disappeared from this book.
Yeah, I think after Blood Scare, there's really no need for her, honestly. But she was in the war. You saw her in the war thing.
I mean, you could argue there was not really any need for many of the other Beetles in this series after the Blood Scarab thing, and they were all still here.
Yeah, but I think that's just part of their story now. Like all the Beetles, like it's just a thing now. Beetle family. They just got to bring families now. Honestly.
Yeah, it's like the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah, or just that's all it is. I don't know. I think it's kind of stupid to kind of go back on the main thing for me. What was like the main thing of this entire series for them to just go back on it on like the final issue. Honestly, just feel like why? Well, not why even have it because they introduced the new character like Blood Scarab, but like I don't know. I wouldn't have rezzed them at least this early on. Honestly, and then. Yeah, pretty much it. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about anything else besides like Pinnacle. If I remember correctly, he didn't actually get like defeated, but so he's coming back at some point. And yeah, that's it. Series as a whole, I think was fine as well. Honestly, there were some really good issues and some pretty just all right ones. So yeah, I think I'd give this honestly probably like 7.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 7 as well.
7. All right, we are moving on to Avengers.
Okay, this is Avengers number 17, written by Jed MacKay, and the artist is Valerio Schiti, new series artist for now, although apparently Valerio Schiti's doing this issue and the next issue, and then is not going to be on issue 19, even though apparently he's the new series artist. So I don't know, that's a little bit weird. But regardless, this is following directly. It's basically, this is just the aftermath of Blood Hunt. So it's kind of mostly just a big character issue where all the characters are kind of going back and forth about their thoughts post Blood Hunt and what they kind of want to do going forward, right? Like Carol very much thinks that they failed as a team and that they didn't do enough to prevent Blood Hunt early on. And, I actually think my favorite moment in this issue is a conversation between her and Tony where they talk about addiction and how it's not just necessary substances, but it can also be to this feeling that you just haven't done enough, and that Carol is very much feeling that right now, and she needs to kind of understand that, like, yeah, you try to save everyone you can, but at the end of the day, they bring this up and they kind of twist this on its head a little bit later, where the Avengers didn't have any foreknowledge really of Blood Hunt happening, and they also they didn't ignore any warnings about it. Like they weren't ignoring anything, and they reacted as quickly and as effectively as they could given the circumstances.
Yep.
And although they do also make reference to the fact that this might have been a tribulation event.
Yeah, she did mention.
Yeah. She said like Kang's lawn night or something. So there's that. Vision and Scarlet Witch have a little character moment as well. Vision's been making a garden with the Impossible City in his spare time. T'Challa just has a heart-to-heart with the city, which I thought was pretty decent. And then the kind of climax of the issue is that Sam Wilson, Captain America, goes to Storm and ultimately recruits her to the Avengers. And the reason being, he, again, flips that thing with Blood Hunt on its head, where he's saying, like, well, we did know that Orchis was there. We ignored some warnings, and we didn't act as fast or as efficiently as we should have. So to rectify that, they want Storm on the team to essentially, keep the best interests of mutants in mind as well, since the Avengers are there to protect everybody on Earth.
Yes.
And so the other part of the issue that's in the background here is Hyperion is just going around having an existential crisis because his world got erased. It was the whole Heroes Reborn universe from Jason Aaron's run, the previous Avengers run. So he's going around, he's like, I have no purpose here, and either this world is fake or I'm fake, and either way, I can't deal with that, so I'm just going to fucking collide into the Earth and kill everybody. And that's where the issue ends. So I will say, I do think this issue fixed a fair amount of my criticisms with this series. Of course, like, it could all devolve again, absolutely. I think there's a very decent chance of that happening based on the previous track record of this run. However, I do think, I said in the last issue of this, which was part of the Blood Hunt tie-in, I kind of made reference to the fact, like, what the fuck are we doing? Where are we going? What happened to the Tribulation event storyline? Knowing that Blood Hunt was part of the Tribulation events, it does kind of reframe that a little bit and make me a little bit less gung-ho on that point. That being said, like, still, Blood Hunt was inconsistent as hell, so it doesn't really change my mind that much on it. But regardless, they discuss the Tribulation events. They have kind of a whole team meeting based around a lot of that. And that does at least reassure me that that plot line did not just get forgotten completely, and that there is still something to be some direction on that. It'll be weird to see how Doom being Sorcerer Supreme will impact all of that, because we do know in a couple issues that is coming into play here. He's on the cover of issue 19. So, like, that is going to be something to deal with, and it may delay the Tribulation event stuff going forward as well, which I don't even love that story, but again, it's like, it does feel like they need to at least resolve it somehow if they've been setting it up this whole time. The other thing is, Thor makes mention to a lot of weight on his shoulders. We know that next issue somebody is leaving the team. I am pretty positive it's Thor. I don't think we have gotten that officially confirmed yet, but between this issue and the fact that he's not on the cover to issue 19, it seems very likely that Thor will be the one to leave the Avengers. So yeah, I mean, I think the dialogue was good. I like that we got some genuine character interactions. Some of them were, I think, more impactful than others, but I at least liked that we got to look in on these characters for a second, take a bit of a breather from the insane action that some of this series has been, and just sit with the characters, see some of their conversations with each other. I do think, like, because of the nature of, like, the amount of characters there are in this issue and having to do the Storm joining the team as well, so some of those character interactions were cut short, I think, a little bit. I would have liked to see them play out a little bit more, but regardless, on the whole, I think it's a solid issue. I like the kind of reset. I'm excited to see how Storm integrates into this team. I think she's a cool addition. I like Storm as a character. It's cool to see her here. This is kind of the first, like, post-Krakoa thing we've really seen her in. And so I do think, like, this has given me a feeling that there is some potential still left in the series. We'll just see if they can kind of keep it going going forward.
Yeah, I think this one was pretty good, especially like the hearts that some of the characters had. Like again, like you said, with specific, like the really good example was the Captain Marvel and Tony Stark one. I think that one was very powerful, especially because, like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes Tony just doesn't, I don't know, he seemed to be the one that knows how to talk to her the best, and then obviously, which is
kind of interesting considering that they were like mortal enemies in Civil War II. Yeah,
exactly. That's why I'm just like, it's kind of interesting to see, like, he kind of understands her the best out of everybody else there. Even like, I can't remember, because, like, I know she said, like, they failed Earth, and I think it was Sam that basically said, like, I don't remember exactly who it was. It was Sam, Who was it that said like basically like I don't agree? Was that Tony or was that somebody
T'Challa.
else?
T'Challa
It was
T'Challa
T'Challa.
disagreed. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember who it was, but yeah, I think Tony what Tony said was like basically like we didn't really fail, we just there were no signs. Like if there were signs and stuff, we like Sam said, like there were signs with Orcus, so that in that case they failed, but with Bloodhound they really couldn't have done anything more than what they did. I think yeah, with the T'Challa Impossible City one was very good too. I don't know. It's not really like a gripe with like it's kind of like I don't know how to feel about it right now. Technically, they said Storm is joining, and that's like obviously she's joining, but like for them to for Sam, right, to basically just offer their position when he's technically not the leader of the Avengers.
Yeah, it's Carol, right? Carol's the leader.
Yeah, she's the
Yeah.
one that chose the team in general, and so he just went to Storm, like behind all of their backs, essentially, really, and was like, "I want you to join the Avengers." But like, he hasn't brought it up to any of the other team members. So what if they just like obviously I know it's comics, so it's not gonna happen, but like they could have just been like, "Nah." That's besides the point. It's like a small gripe of mine. I'm just like, that's I don't know, but yeah, I think the character moments in this one were very good. Just like the heart-to-hearts between all the different characters. Thor obviously didn't have a heart-to-heart with anybody, really. I think he was just talking about like how he's a god. And
yeah, that was when I think he was about to say that he was leaving the Avengers there, and then he got cut off by the Hyperion thing popping up.
Okay, yeah, see, I didn't remember that too much. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this one goes. Oh, I'm also glad they finally brought up the tribulation events as well. I felt like I was kind of questioning it, like going into this one. I was like, where are we at with this? And then they mentioned it. I was like, okay, so that was technically a tribulation event. Okay, so glad to see we're not just completely forgetting this. So yeah, I think this one was pretty good. Really liked some of the character interactions in this one, and so yeah, I'd give this probably. I'm gonna give it a 7. Honestly, yeah, 7, 8. 7.
I'm gonna tentatively give it an 8. I think it's a low 8, but yeah, I do think like I think it was just refreshing to see like character interactions happen. And so I'm being a little bit more lenient towards this issue than I maybe otherwise would be. But yeah, I do think next issue Thor's going to leave. It also makes sense because like, Storm is also a weather person. And so with her joining the team, like Thor's powers are kind of redundant. So I think it makes sense for him to leave the team as well. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, I am somewhat curious to see how the series develops going forward now, which is kind of more than I could say a few weeks ago. Okay, Sebastian. Okay, let's do Birds of Prey. This is Birds of Prey number 12. Written by Kelly Thompson, with a couple of artists credited. We have Javier Pina, Sophie Campbell, and Gavin Guidry. So this is the second to last issue of the of this current Birds of Prey dimension hopping arc. And yeah, I don't know about this, man. I'm kind of I don't think I'm gonna drop it quite yet. I might give it like 2 more issues, but I am starting to really just not be super invested in this series right now.
Yeah,
ultimately, this issue, they kind of, it starts off, they're still in the dinosaur land. They have Maya, I believe is her name, on the back foot. More specifically, Vixen is like kind of doing a great deal of damage to her. But they also don't know, like, if they kill her, they realize later that this is actually be true, it would end up just like nobody would have the power to get out of that dimension, since she's the one who kind of makes the portals out of there. And so they don't want to be stuck in this dinosaur world forever. And so they jump through the next portal, and whoever's in front, I don't remember who it was. It's probably Sin, I think.
It was Sin, yes.
Yeah. She imagines it as like a cartoon world, because she's like, cartoons are safe and cute and fun and everything. So they go to this cartoon world, and they're trying to kind of sort out a plan. And the plan they eventually arrive on is that Maya's sister, whose name I cannot remember, is basically going to have to be the one to kill her and absorb her powers. Because again, they have the ability to do that. All of the siblings in this family have the ability to do that, but it's only Maya and her sister left, so she has to be the one to do it. And in that case, then they would no longer be chased by Maya, and as well, they would also have the power to leave the other dimensional pocket dimension realm thing. So their plan is, beyond that, to make a big ruckus, kind of attract Maya's attention. They figure out that basically anytime they make like a big disturbance in the world, that's when a portal will open to the next world. And then so they go in with a plan of basically how to they go in with a plan of what they want the next world to be like. Basically, Cassandra is going to be imagining the world, and Maya's sister's going to be envisioning all of her other siblings. I guess in the hopes that they all spawn there or something. And so yeah, they have kind of a bit of a conversation with Maya. They also have this is probably my favorite part of the issue. Barda earlier in the issue like made a rabbit really angry that was like kind of coming over and trying to like become her friend. She like made it really angry, and then it gathered like a whole army of other rabbits, and they were fighting all these rabbits. That was kind of a fun moment. And then yeah, at the end of the issue, they jump through the portal, and that's where the issue ends. Oh well, hang on. There's more because we do come back to the real world briefly, where Zealot and Meridian are both there, and John Constantine shows up along with Xanthi from the Spirit World series. This is the first time that they've shown up since Spirit World, so it's interesting to see what Xanthi's doing there. I don't know. That is a little bit interesting. I really like immediately. Xanthi's pretty cool in this. Like they just pop up and they're like, "Hey, sorry, I'm not really kind of introducing myself, but this is a big fucking deal. Are we sure they're not dead? This shit is crazy." And that's where the issue actually ends. And honestly, that cliffhanger is kind of the main thing that's keeping me picking up the next issue. I very, very heavily debated just immediately dropping this after this week. It's not bad at all, but I just think like this arc has just been kind of nothing, and I haven't really been that engaged with this arc. Yeah. Some of it's been kind of fun here and there. I kind of like the dinosaur stuff last issue, but like on the whole, I just don't feel like this arc has been as engaging or as fun as some of the other previous issues. It's been kind of very exposition heavy, and I think that's kind of part of the problem with having them change worlds every time is they kind of have to exposit like what the world is and why it's this one versus another one. And there's a lot of background and lore with this whole arc that's kind of also having to be explained. And so I do think like it's just not been as engaging for me. I know a new arc is starting soon. And, as part of this DC all-in era that they're kicking off here post Absolute Power. So I am gonna check that first issue out of that arc probably, unless I really just don't like the next issue of this arc, in which I'm just to be like, fuck it, I'm done. But yeah, I'm not really, I don't know. It's not that I dislike this series. I just am not finding myself really being engaged by it anymore.
I mean, all right, to that point, I think it's definitely like I am definitely less interested in this arc than the first arc as a whole, like 100%. I think this one is a lot weaker than that first arc. I really just not invested as much, like at all, really. I think it's like it's not confusing per se because they explained it really well this one and between this one and last one, like how it's all really working. I think the world in this one I think was fine, like art style I think was fine. It was very different from the rest of what we've gotten so far. One thing that kind of bothered me towards the beginning of this one is literally they jumped into this new world, and with Vixen's connection, like since she got reconnected to the Red, they just instantly found Barbara. Like the entire point of them totally jumping into these portals, it was just like snap. Like that was easy. Like it's like, oh yeah, I found Barbara, by the way. I'll go get her real quick. Bring her back. Yeah. She's fine. It's just like, what? No, that's like the whole point was for you guys to track her down, and you didn't even know if she was alive. Like, what the? That was way too easy. Like, what the hell? Yeah. So that kind of bothered me in this one a little bit. And then besides that, really, it was just a kind of like a fun issue with just seeing the cartoon characters, them fight with the bunnies or whatever. And then Xanthi showing up at the end I was not expecting that at all. I had no idea they were coming back. I feel like that's more of a magical portal than anything, rather than like a spiritual portal. But
I have heard the theory that it might have something to do with Cass's time in the spirit world from that series.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that, but
not gonna lie, I kind of forgot she was in it. But okay, fair enough. I don't know. Maybe Xanthi will join Birds of Prey.
Yeah, maybe. That'd be interesting. I don't think Xanthi's on the cover of the start of the next arc. So
hey, man, I'm just theorizing here.
Yeah, it lists the new team for the next arc, and it's Cassandra is still on the team, but she apparently breaks contact when she's undercover. And then it's Babs, it's Dinah still, Barda, Megara, and newcomers Grace, Choi, and Onyx, who I have no idea who the fuck they are. So,
okay, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just really like I'm really just reading this just to kind of just like to read it honestly. But like I said, I really like this whole storyline. I have not been invested in nearly as much as the
Yeah.
last one. Honestly, kind of since the beginning. It really has just not interested me at all. It really cemented that in this one where I really, like I said, I was just reading it just to read it. It was just a fun read.
Yeah.
With the whole cartoon aspect behind it and everything, and Barda just complaining that cartoons are evil the entire time. And so yeah, I think it was. But besides that, I think it was fine. I think I'm just. I will probably finish the arc. I hate leaving it so close to the end and just not finishing. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's annoying that you can just leave it and just not care about finishing. How do you leave
Well, I
it?
get it, but I get it, but at the same time, I think like the thing is, this is kind of always going to be the case with comics. FOMO is a very real thing for me with this series as well, or not series, but comics in general. I'm always like, God, but what if the next issue is really good? What if the next arc is really good? Like it could get really great, but then I'm like, well, if that's the case, then I will just never drop anything, and I would just spend more and more money on comics, and ultimately I have to know when I'm just not vibing with the series and just cut it off, you know?
I mean, like, I can get with like FOMO, obviously, and like I can get like not wanting to drop series, but like for me, like if you're so close to the end, like right, there's like what, like two? You said there was 2 issues left in this arc.
There's one more in the arc.
In the arc, yeah, I'm finishing the arc, and then after that, like if I'm still not enjoying it, I'm dropping it, bro. Like that's it.
Yeah.
I don't even have to start the next arc. Score time 6. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna be nice and give it a 7. Again, I don't think it's bad. I just am no longer engaged in it.
Yeah, that's why I give it a 6. Like I don't think it was bad either. I really could care less. I just genuinely don't. So I'm gonna move on to Blood Hunters #1.
I did not read this.
Yeah, first time in a while that I'm actually doing a solo here. All right, so let's see here. We got let me find these. Okay, writer, we got Erica Schultz. Artist Robert Gill. And yeah, okay, so this one starts off with the four blood hunters. I'm just gonna call them White Widow, Dagger, Elsa, and then Hallows Eve attacking At first, they were attacking a group of vampires. It was like 4 or 3, or I don't remember how many. It was just a group of vampires, and basically, like it kind of is like self-put that like Dagger's kind of like the leader. She's just been barking orders the entire time, and basically telling Elsa specifically not to kill the vampires because she can cure them. And so they capture him and stuff, and the entire issue. I'll just get this out of the way. Dagger and Elsa are bickering like the entire time. Like Elsa just wants to kill all vampires. Like she keeps reiterating that she does not work on a team, when I know for a fact she has worked on a team before. So I really don't understand her character right now. Granted, I have not read too much with Elsa in it, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just misjudging here right now. But yeah. And so Dagger heals up this group of vampires. For the most part, they're happy, except for this one guy who was like, I really hate you right now. I didn't want to be cured. I wanted to be a vampire. Now I have to grow old and die. And the other two were like, well, thank you very much. We didn't want to be vampires. Well, thank you for healing us. And so they are walking. So then it cuts to Spider-Man, and he's like swinging through, and he finds a group of vampires attacking this other guy, and so he goes in and tries to stop them. And as the blood hunters are like walking down the street trying to find more vampires, they see one get flung out the alley, and so they are like, Spider-Man, you need help? And he's like, yeah, let's do this. So they team up for a little bit, and Elsa is like basically tells Spider-Man to like get down, and she shoots like some like some silver bird shot into like this group of vampires. It's not meant to like kill them, but just to like injure them with the silver and stuff. And one of them hits Spider-Man, and they all realize that he's a vampire. So Elsa goes like all crazy. It's like, all right, we gotta fucking kill this guy. Like he's way too powerful to be a vampire. So White Widow and Hallows Eve like hold her back while Dagger tries to heal him, and it doesn't fucking work. This is some bullshit, man. This is ridiculous. This is why he's still a vampire. Her powers don't work on him for some reason. Why?
Is it because he's super powered?
We don't know. They just left that open-ended. It literally went to Dagger failing to heal him to Elsa breaking free and shooting him. We don't know if the bullet hits. It's left open-ended again. So I don't know. He's still a vampire, and it annoys me. All right, that's it. We also get this small tidbit with the Blood Coven. They kind of had like a power struggle between two of them, like kind of like debating what they should be doing. Ultimately, yeah, it's like the Bloodstorm One is like the leader essentially, and one of the vampires from like original group that the Bloodhunters fought basically goes over there and like pledges his allegiance and says something to him that intrigues him. I really don't remember what it is. I'm gonna be honest. It's just basically that the Blood Hunters are like hunting them, specifically the Blood Coven, and so yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, I upset that Miles is still a vampire. At least, at least I know Dagger tried at least, and they didn't. We're just like, yeah, he's a vampire because like nobody's tried. At least I know for a fact she has tried, so I'm a little less annoyed at the fact that he's a vampire. I'm still annoyed that it didn't work, though. I'm gonna get that out of there. Like, I understand that's very like stupid of me, honestly, to just be like, yeah, he's a vampire because it didn't work. That's dumb. Like that's no, but whatever. I don't like it. He shouldn't be a vampire. There's too many ways. We've seen too many people get healed from vampirism at this point for him to just still be a vampire. So yeah. But besides that, it actually wasn't that bad. Realistically, it wasn't a bad read. So yeah, I gave it a 7.
I will say, I do think that it probably is the fact that he is a superhero. He has superpowers. And my guess is that that will probably get like figured out later and explained later. They just have not done it right off the bat.
No, yeah, exactly. Like that's why I said like I'm gonna keep reading this at this point because I have a feeling they're gonna go further into that whole like why he's still a vampire bit, and I'm just so curious as to why he's still a vampire.
Yeah, I have a feeling you're gonna read this entire series because I think it's only 5 issues. So
it is highly possible.
Okay, well, Sebastian, let's do Gotham City Sirens. This is what Sebastian made me read for this week. It's also what he's going to be making me read next week, spoiler alert, which honestly, I'll take it this over Werewolf by Night still. But yeah, anyway, this is Gotham City Sirens, issue number 1, written by Leah Williams. The artist is Matea Lowley. I don't know why the fuck Sebastian wanted to read this in the first place, honestly. But listen, I will say, I don't think this was awful from a perspective of it was not like a read where it wasn't a slog of a read, I will say.
Yeah.
I don't think this is good though. It's weird as fuck. I have no idea what the fuck is happening in this issue. It also seems to be trying this like meta commentary on like video games and like streamers and stuff, and it's just so like farcical that I don't think it lands. Because essentially, like, it starts off with White Rabbit getting captured. Although I didn't know this, but White Rabbit actually has like 2 like consciousnesses. One is White Rabbit, and one is her like human non-super person persona. So they just like split off, and then Catwoman comes up and like kidnaps the human form while the super form gets captured by these cowboys who are, as we learn later on, they're like avatars, like game avatars that have other people's consciousnesses in them. How or why, we don't know. But then like so it cuts to Harley. She has a run-in with these cowboys. They're trying to, with a couple of them at least, they're trying to like hunt down a bison, which is also an avatar, it seems, because it seems like there's some other consciousness in there.
It's like it's synthetic. It's a robot.
Yeah.
Like it keeps it just keeps repairing itself and coming back to life no matter how much Harley shoots it.
Yeah, and it keeps chasing Harley as well.
Yes.
It chases her all the way to her base with Poison Ivy, where Catwoman also shows up, and she's like, yo, there's some mad shit going on. Check this out. And then I don't remember a lot of the other part of the issue. I don't think there was much else besides the very end where there's a fucking... Well, okay, there's also like this weird part where it's talking about this new energy drink that has had like people ravenous and like rioting and breaking into gas stations and stuff in Gotham to get it. I don't know why, like that was such a weird just diversion. It does like come back into play a little bit at the end where there's a hot tub streamer who we find out at the end of the issue, it's a cliffhanger reveal that it's Punchline. She is like, she's streaming and she's also like with every purchase of this drink, you get 5, in-game currency thing, which you can then redeem to, like, be hunted by me, I think is the implication.
Yeah.
And that's where the issue ends. So, like, again, I didn't hate reading this. There's not a lot of dialogue, so it's a fairly easy read.
Yeah.
But just the entire time, I was like, what the fuck is this? It felt like some weird fucking fever dream. I don't know what the point of this really was. I do think, like, it is attempting some sort of commentary, but I just don't know. It's so over the top that it makes me wonder if it is, like, intentionally trying to provide a stance on this commentary. I really don't know what it's doing in this issue. And so ultimately, I just walked away from this issue being like, what the fuck did I just read? Which, to be fair, like, I do think that's a better reaction than being bored by a comic, but it's just a very strange issue. It's going weekly in August. So, I don't know. Just weird fucking series premiere. And I honestly I don't even really know what to think about it. It's just very strange.
No, it was very, very strange. I was glad, like, we talked about it a little bit beforehand, but I told him I was glad that I wasn't the only one that had no idea what the frick was going on. Like, it's not explained at all what the hell is going on, really. Which is honestly, like, it's fine. It's a new series. Like, not everything has to be explained right away. Like, what the fuck's happening? Like, not every comic really does that anyway. But this one was just, like, weirder than normal, to the point where you're just like, okay, I'm, like, honestly having trouble following what the hell's going on. Like, I also didn't know the Right Rabbit, like, double persona. So that was interesting to learn. What else? Yeah, the whole, like, avatar things, you kind of got the hang of it, or kind of, like, figured that out a bit. But how that all works, like, are the Sirens themselves, like, in a simulation? Or is, like, this some sort of, like, weird power thing, or is it the actual, like, the energy drink that, like, somehow creates, like, are the cowboys just robots? Probably, like the bison. Like, it's just a lot.
I think they are, because they reference, like, oh, when you get too old and your parts don't work anymore, you get thrown into the pit. So I'm assuming they are also robot avatars.
Yeah. And so I don't know how it all works. Like, it made it seem like they were in a simulation at points, but then it's the real world. I really don't know how Punchline is doing all this, because I assume Punchline is the one behind it.
Yeah, probably.
Which was like the reveal at the end that it was Punchline. What exactly she is doing, though, I have no fucking idea. It's super weird. But like you said as well, it wasn't a bad read, honestly. Like, it was a super easy read, not a lot of dialogue. Besides the fact that it was just, like, super weird and just, like, confusing, honestly. I didn't really mind it. I think the art was fine. And yeah, pretty much it. 7.
Oh, that's generous.
Yeah, I feel I was kind of regretting it as I was saying it.
Yeah. I honestly, I have no idea what to give this. I'm just gonna kind of give it a 5 and move on, I think.
We're doing Daredevil number 12.
This is Daredevil number 12, written by Saladin Ahmed. The artist is Aaron Cooter. This officially wraps up the first year of this new Daredevil run. Okay. To this series' credit here, it is getting better at making me interested and wanting to see what happens next. I think the cliffhangers are getting better. I think the ideas are good. But again, like, the execution when I'm reading this stuff, I just don't really care, ultimately. This issue, it is the big kind of climactic confrontation between Daredevil, both Daredevils, but mostly Matt, and Fisk, possessed by greed. So it's a bit of a brawl. This sequence looks great. The art's very cool. I really liked the whole, the action sequence looks very good. And so it's basically it's Matt. He after a bit of a back and forth fighting, kind of throwing punches thing. Elektra gets involved as well, tries to help out, and then Matt tries to exercise greed from Fisk.
Yes,
but it doesn't work because Matt's been too greedy, and he's kind of had this. He's tried to have it, both ways with being this man of God and running the youth home. The religious youth home, while also going out and, beating up people dressed as the devil. And so basically Fisk is saying, greed in Fisk's body is saying that God has abandoned Matt and that he no longer has the power to exorcise these demons. So then we get a weird scene where Matt just hallucinates his dead dad. And then his dad's like, yeah. The same thing kind of happened in Spider-Gwen last week, actually. And then his dad is like, hey, Matt, you get a second chance. You can use the word of God again. And so he just pops up and he exercises Fist, and that's kind of that. At the end, Fist gets up. Matt and Elektra are both beaten the fuck up. Like, they do not have any energy left. And Matt thinks that Fist is about to just start going at it again. But instead, Fist, like, bows before Matt and asks him, like, to cleanse him or whatever. And so the other part of this issue, it's brief, but it's Jason running from the demon thing from last issue. And then he goes back to the youth home. And honestly, in my favorite sequence of the issue, he goes and is like, Father Javi, please help. And the demon is trying to like bust down the door. And Javi just he like picks up a pipe or something. He's like, all right, I'm going to fucking beat the shit out of this thing, whatever it is. Which does, unfortunately, Sebastian, probably discount your theory of that thing being Father Javi.
Still possible. It is still possible, right? He could just be throwing on airs because he doesn't want them to know.
Yeah,
we don't know yet.
I find that pretty unlikely. I think it is more likely that that's one of the other demons.
My theory is alive, I will say.
Okay, and so yeah, that's the issue. That's where this issue ends. And ultimately, like, again, I find myself kind of with this series being in a similar place that I've been with it pretty much the entirety of its run. I think the ideas are good, but I do think the execution of it, not only is the execution of it not really stellar, for me at least, but I also just think, again, like, the story has been drawn out to the point where it does feel very repetitive. And I don't think that's a problem with all of stories, because I was thinking, we're going to be talking about Incredible Hulk here at some point soon. And I was thinking there, like, I don't have a problem with the eldest story continuing to go on. And that's been actually longer than this storyline has been going. So why does it bother me here and not with Hulk? And I think the reason for that is that Eldest is one villain that they are slowly building up to a big conversation for, and they're, throwing in multiple hurdles here and there. The demon thing, it's kind of the same thing over and over and over. Like, yes, it's different demons, but it's the same kind of way to expel them. And so we've had this thing where Matt has had to exercise 5 of them at this point. And so it's felt more repetitive, I think, because of that, because we're seeing the same thing get repeated over and over and over and over again. And the other thing is, there's 2 of them left as well. This story arc isn't even fucking done yet. And so I do just find myself thinking, like, it just feels, this run, more than maybe any other run that I'm reading right now, feels like wasted potential. Because I do think there's potential here. I think a lot of the ideas are good. I think the cliffhangers are often good. I want to see, like, what happens with Fist. Like, what's the deal with him now? He knows who Matt is. He's been cleansed of greed now. But now he's also kind of, asking Matt for forgiveness and so how is that going to develop? That could throw in a very interesting wrench in their relationship. How is Matt going to reconcile, the 2 different parts of himself right now? I'm sure that'll be, brought back into play at some point. So there is stuff that I'm interested to see in this series. And I really do think, like, there's some very solid foundations and ideas here. And I feel like I should be loving this series as a result of that. But ultimately, I just sit here, and after every issue I read, I have been like, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens next. I want to see what happens next. But at the same time, I don't find myself, having any real strong emotions or feelings after reading each of these issues. So I don't know. That's how I would characterize this run up to this point. I hope year 2 is more interesting. I genuinely very much want Solid Anama to really wow me. And maybe I go back and read this run in its entirety in a couple years from now, and I love it. But right now, I'm not feeling that. I do want Solid Anama to stay on the book for a while longer so we can really, see. Again, I want to see this run get better. I want to see his writing really, floor me and wow me. I'm just not feeling it right now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, man. Honestly, I think Greed was fine. So it's been the strongest demon that he's had to fight so far, it seems. And, like, that scene where, like, he's trying to exercise the demon and Fist just, like, crushes his hand. And you see at one point, like, you see his mangled hand, and he takes the cross out, and it just, like, it fixes itself after, like, whatever, and he, like, exercises the demon and stuff. And I think that like artwork was, like, very, very good and stuff, and whatever. But, like, when Fist just kneeled down and was like, Father, please forgive me for all that I've done, I was like, I hated that, actually.
Why?
That was not a Fisk thing to do, my man.
But that's why I'm so interested in seeing where that goes.
I really hated that. It bothered the shit out of me. I was like, okay, like even Matt was like, all right, I have no like strength. I'm like, it's taking all of my might right now just to like stay conscious. Elektra is like, she's sitting next to me, but she can't fight right now either. Like Fisk is about to like throw hands, and we're not gonna be able to do anything about this. And for him to just kneel there and be like, "Forgive me for all that I've done," I'm like, no, that's just like no. He knows at this point. He knows who Daredevil is. I assume he knows that he was like possessed by a demon that was like, and it's partly Daredevil's fault. I don't think that's what he would have done. My theory is still very much alive that Father Javi is some sort of weird superhuman summoner dude. Bullseye is, I don't know, dead or something. I don't know.
Bullseye's not dead.
And then what else? What else happened in this one, honestly? That was just the final fight with Kingpin, wasn't it? To your point about between like the eldest and this storyline, I think it's because the eldest one, right? Because I remember specifically like kind of towards like before we got Frozen Charlotte, we were kind of getting sick of eldest. We were like, okay, nothing like it wasn't that we were getting sick of eldest. It was the fact that like eldest would throw these monsters at Hulk, and Hulk would just have no problem with them. And I think that's kind of what's happening with this one, where it's just like it's repetitive, so it's boring. Like
right.
Everything is always the same. He just has to exercise the demon, and that's that. That's literally it. Like this one has felt, I would say, the most different of them all, simply because it took him such a long time to be able to exercise it. But that's partly at the same time why it felt so boring to me, because at the end of the day, we knew it was just gonna be solved the same way.
Yeah.
So the fact that it even took him so long to even start exercising him, like, to me was just like why? Like, why drag it on this long, honestly? Like, I know Kingpin is like a huge significant villain for Daredevil and stuff like that, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like the Kingpin arc was like what, like 4 or 5 issues. I think it just they dragged Kingpin on too long for me. Like, I don't know. And so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I don't know. It's very repetitive. I mean, we'll see who gets the next demon. Like you said, there's 2 left. Well, we know one of them is that wolf, I guess. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Javi is a demon guy. Maybe he's the main demon guy.
I really don't think he's the main demon guy.
I'm gonna throw it out there. New theory.
Oh God.
He's the main demon guy. All right. Well, my score rating here. I don't know. I was nice on the last one, and I feel like I'm about to be harsh on this one, so I really can't say that one. We'll just say 7 again. I'm gonna give a lot of 7s this week.
I'm also giving it a 7. I do think, for me, like the eldest thing, it was less that I was annoyed by the repetitiveness of it, and more that I was annoyed by the fact that there was the lack of story with Eldest. We didn't get much of it for a while. This has kind of felt like the opposite. I felt like they've just been like beating us over the head with like, it's another demon, it's another demon, it's another demon. And so that's kind of been what I've been frustrated with. A big part of what I've been frustrated with this run. Okay, next up, let's do Ultimate Black Panther.
Start of a new arc here.
Yep, it's written by Brian Hill. The artist is Stefano Caselli. As Sebastian mentioned, this is the start of the War of the Kingdoms arc. And I tried to go into this one with an open mind, because I've been a little bit down on the past couple issues of Ultimate Black Panther. I do feel like it's not been doing a great job of building things up in a way that has felt substantial and and in a way that has felt like stuff is happening, and this cover, it's cool, it's T'Challa fighting a bunch of Christmas lights, he's just like, I'm covered in these Christmas lights. For anybody who's listening to this on Spotify and not on YouTube, it's not Christmas lights, it's that new element, but it kind of looks like Christmas lights.
It's vines.
I tried to keep an open mind, and that is why it disappoints me to say I still am not clicking with this. I don't know what it is, but this issue did not do it for me. We do get more in the way of action. There's a couple action sequences in this. The first one is my favorite part of the issue, probably. It's T'Challa going up against a field full of Ron Khonshu's soldiers, and the way they dispatch them is pretty cool. It's T'Challa and Killmonger and Storm. They all do some cool stuff.
Yep.
And that's the same at the end. It's T'Challa and Killmonger and Storm. They do some more stuff there, and they have another big fight. And Ra and Khonshu are looking on, and they're like, "Yeah, they may think they're doing well, but that's actually they're gonna fall soon." And that's the end of the issue.
Yeah.
The middle, it's some more diplomatic talk. T'Challa and not T'Challa, Killmonger and Storm, I think, kind of have a little bit of a debate about like, well, what are we doing helping Wakanda? Like, they're not really great either. Like, they've had their own problems, and then ultimately T'Challa sends at the behest of Shuri, I believe, T'Challa sends Storm and Killmonger to go and
oh yeah,
right. But I think they refuse. Right? They go like, well, actually, I'm gonna go. Like, you can't.
No, so at first he was gonna send Storm and Okoye only,
Right.
and then Killmonger interjected and said, "I'm going with them."
Well, I thought it was going to be two teams. It was going to be T'Challa and Okoye. T'Challa and Ororo, and then Killmonger and Okoye were the two teams, and then they switched them, is what I thought happened.
But I don't know. Maybe I misread that one then.
Yeah, T'Challa sends them to find the Sorcerer Supreme, wherever that may be. He doesn't say Sorcerer Supreme, that's kind of what that is. But he's like, okay, before you do that, Storm, Killmonger, come with me on one last mission. And they do that. That's where they do that big fight. And that's kind of what the issue is. The action is cool. It looks cool. It's fine. But, like, again, I still feel like nothing really substantial is happening issue to issue. Even, like, with, the kind of war kicking off in full force. Again, I said this last time we talked about this series. I did not feel like this was going to feel like a substantial enough conflict based on how little I felt like it had been organically built up throughout the series so far. And I feel that way here. There's a point also where they're like, oh, we've been fighting this war for months, and it's been such a big war. And I'm like, fucking has it? Because we have not seen jack shit of that. Even in this issue, I do not feel that at all. So again, like, I want to like this series. I do. I think, scene to scene, there's stuff I like. I think the dialogue is usually pretty good. I think the art's very good. I think the action is often fine. But I just find myself every issue just not caring. And it's getting more... I'm caring less about the series as it's going on. There's a part of me that's like, should I drop this? I don't want to drop an Ultimate book, but should I drop it? And that's been kind of rattling around in my head. This is definitely my least favorite of the Ultimate books so far, currently. And it's a bummer because I feel like this could be more, and it's not getting there for me.
Yeah, man. Honestly, for me, I had the same thing that I said last issue. When I finished it, I literally was like, oh, that was it. Like, these are so short for me. I don't know. Like, I read them so fast. I don't know why. Like, so fast. To the point where I literally have to read it and just be like, oh, that was it. And then I have to think back on what exactly happened, because otherwise I would easily forget it. Like, I just breeze through these books. Yeah, honestly, I didn't think this one was bad, per se. I like the action sequences towards the end, specifically also with him combining his like powers with Storm in there. And then this war is like so, like, for me on their side, like it's so dumb, because he could have easily prevented this if from the beginning he went against Ra and Khonshu, like I think it was like Shuri was saying or something. I don't know who it was.
But I think that's kind of actually, to this series' credit, I think that's kind of the point, and I think that's even what Killmonger is kind of saying. Like, he should have been helping, but Wakanda has been walled off and so focused on its own thing that it's not been helping Africa as a whole. I think that's kind of baked into the core conflict of this series.
No, exactly, it is, and that's what I find. Like, it's at this point, like Ultimate Universe, it's the exact same Wakanda as same 616. Like nothing has changed at all. Like, they're still, like, unsure of whether they should reveal themselves to the world and stuff like that. Like, whether they should be fighting for Africa or just themselves. Like, if he had been fighting for Africa from the very beginning and pushing Ron Koshi back and not letting them gain as many followers as they have, this war would have never happened. Like, none of this would be going on right now. And so that's like, it's still just so dumb to me. And then what else? I don't know. I don't know, man. It's so short that, like, I feel like things happen, but like it's so short that I just like it's so hard to talk about sometimes. Like, they had the political discussion and 2 fights. That was it. The entire like that's it. And like the political discussion like was fine. You know, he chose teams, which at this point I don't even know the teams. I thought it was 3 people and then just him. Might be 2 and 2. I don't know. That somewhere that got lost
I think it is 2 and 2 because I remember
in the
thinking.
reading.
I remember thinking when I was reading it, when T'Challa said, "Yeah, it's gonna be me and Storm on one team and Killmonger and Okoye on the other." I remember thinking, "Oh, for fuck's sake, they're just gonna make T'Challa and Storm a thing in this universe as well, and then it'll just be even less like it'll just be even more like 616." So I had that thought, so I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man. This is like I still think it's fine. I still think it's like I'll read it, but it's just like things happen but they happen so fast that it's hard to remember it. Honestly, like usually you do the opposite. So many things happen that it's hard to remember it. No, it's literally like such little things happen that it's hard to remember right now. So I'm gonna be harsh with this one and give it a 6.
I'm also giving it a 6. And there's a possibility I drop this. I'm not gonna do it yet, but it is on my mind. So
it's on the mind. Honestly, all right. I let's go with Scarlett.
Okay, this is Scarlett number 3, written by Kelly Thompson as well, and the artist is Marco Ferrari. Now, this should be fairly easy to explain because it's just a huge action sequence as Scarlett fights her way through this building to try and find the weapon to, prove her worth to the Arashikage clan to ultimately get Jinx out of there. So most of it's just a big action sequence. We do find out at one point that that it's kind of a 2-fronted heist where Scarlett is going in to essentially like deactivate the power in this building, which will then deactivate the security measures in the other one and allow them to like get the weapon that they need. So Scarlett, after a long fight involving like jumping through shark tanks and all this crazy stuff, manages to get her part of the heist complete. Storm Shadow and Jinx on the other side manage to get their part of the mission complete. They all kind of meet up on a rooftop afterwards. Storm Shadow's not there. I don't actually know where he is.
Yeah.
But Jinx and Scarlett meet up on a roof after the end of the action sequence. This is the first time that they kind of acknowledge each other's presence as friends, because, they've been kind of under surveillance the rest of the time before then. And then so the buyer of that weapon shows up, and we don't know for sure who it is, but the helicopter that shows up has the Cobra logo painted on it. So, presumably it could be Cobra Commander. It could be like Mercer, his like second in command. It could be Destro, although I kind of doubt it because Destro would not be in a Cobra chopper. He'd probably be in a Mars chopper. But yeah, that's basically the issue. And as a result, I don't have a whole lot to say on this, but I liked it quite a bit still. I think again, with issues like this where it's based around an action sequence and mostly just that, I tend to then, evaluate the issue as a whole based on how good I think the action sequence was. And I think the action sequence was quite good. I think it was pretty cool. The art looks, I think, for the most part, pretty cool. There were some really creative, layouts on the pages that I thought worked quite well. One in particular, it's a double-page spread, but it's just like one kind of narrow strip of image in the middle, and it's Scarlett kind of fighting her way across this long corridor. Like, that was really cool. Stuff like that I really like. And, I just think it was a fun kind of big fight sequence issue. I am interested to see who's in that helicopter, if it is indeed Cobra Commander. Again, I kind of doubt that, because it seems like I don't think he would show up in person for something like that. Maybe he would. But that is also interesting because it is kind of, again, folding Scarlett into the more of the wider Energon universe. Since this has felt a little bit disconnected, even though, like, at the start, one of the other G.I. Joes showed up in the first issue. Even so, though, it has felt kind of separate from the rest of the Energon universe as a whole so far. So this will probably loop that in a little bit more, and I'm excited to see how that goes. So yeah, I'm still liking Scarlett. I think it's good. I think right now I would of the 4 Energon universe books running, I would probably put. It's hard to say with Destro because it is only 2 issues in, but I would tentatively put Destro in first. Then probably Scarlett and Transformers kind of 2 and 3 on par with each other. And then Void Rivals in last. So I'm liking this book so far. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. I think it was fine. I was honestly lost for kind of most of the beginning. I skimmed through the second issue reading before this one. And so I was genuinely just so lost. I had no idea what was going on. I kind of pieced it together that she was doing a heist, that she was turning off a security system. And mostly the part that confused me the most was the fact that, like, her and Jinx were like whenever Jinx would, like, like somebody would mention Scarlett to Jinx, she was like acting like she had never known her, and then at the very end they acted like best friends. I was like, what the? I was kind of lost there. I thought at first I thought
Jinx is undercover, so.
Well, yeah, I kind of got the gist of it, but like after while I was reading it, I was like, is Jinx like doing like some weird double cross on Scarlett right now, or like I was a little bit lost. I kind of figured it out that Jinx is okay. She's also undercover and she's pretending not to know Scarlett, so that's okay. I understood that. I don't know what the weapon is. I don't know if they explained that.
They might have, but I don't remember either. Yeah,
I don't remember. And then it was basically a big action sequence, big heist thing. Showed off Scarlett's skills a bit. She did get stabbed at one point, which she said was not good. I mean, it looked pretty deep, I would say. I don't remember right now. It's a comic book. You're not gonna die. And big reveal that at the end with the Cobra Commander, possibly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's fine. I think it was good. Good action sequence overall. Good heist. Showed off her spy skills a lot. And so I think it was a pretty solid read here. Pretty solid good read. Sate.
I'm just gonna give it an 8 straight up. I think I quite enjoyed this one. I think it was a solid one, and I mean, the Cobra logo is on the cover of issue number 5, so we very well will probably see Cobra Commander somewhere in this book, even if not next issue. I also think it's pretty likely that we will see like a post-credits kind of esque tease of Snake Eyes in the last issue, but we'll see on that as well. Either way, I like the series. I think it's good. I quite enjoyed it. Let's do Hulk.
Hulk it is.
This is the Incredible Hulk number 15, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and the artist is Danny Earls. No Nick Klein on the art this issue, but I actually think that this issue had really good art. I think that this is the best Danny Earls art that we've had. I prefer Nick Klein's art, but I think this is a very solid art on this. Okay, so I remember the start of this issue, right? Because we see Eldest. Eldest is talking to one of the other monsters, and the monster's like, Eldest, tell me a story. You're gonna crush the Hulk. Tell me the story. And then Eldest is like, this isn't the first Hulk that I've dealt with. And then it flashes back to a long time ago of a Hulk named Enkidu. And I'm afraid, Sebastian, you're gonna have to take the rest of this issue on the synopsis, because I don't remember what the fuck happened other than that.
I do. Okay. Well, so it's Enkidu. He's like in his human form, whatever. He is basically wandering in a desert. And so he comes across like these other like monsters, let's say, and they're dragging like this family. I'll call them a family, basically back to the main city, if I'm not mistaken. And so they see him, the monsters see Enkidu in his human form or whatever, and they're like kind of talking, whatever. And that's when he transforms into like his like Hulk, right? And so he like beats up the monsters, and the family takes them back to their cave where they're like staying essentially, and they kind of explain what's kind of going on, like the city, a bit of like who Eldest is, a little bit. He's basically like the leader. He like tells them what the monsters what to do and stuff like that. Don't remember what else they talked about, honestly. And basically Enkidu tells them to just leave this cave, because like they're not going to be safe here tomorrow, as he leaves and goes towards the city, which is what he was trying to find the entire time wandering in the desert, and those monsters just like basically told him where it is. And so one of those monsters actually survived and crawled back to Eldest and explained what is going on. And I can't remember what Eldest did to that monster, honestly. I think I remember if he killed him or if he just
I think so. I also remember that they the monster or whoever or whatever it was mentioned briefly brought up the green door and the one below all. So Immortal Hulk callbacks. We love to see it.
Green door mentioned, and one below all mentioned, and I guess Eldest is actually trying to get the power of the green door. I think it was like kind of like hinted at. He's trying to get the power of the green door to basically make the world available to like the one below all or something like that.
To me, from memory, it seemed like Eldest was in opposition to the One Below All and didn't want the One Below All coming up there.
He was trying to use the power of the Green Door to like basically bring like the hellscape or some. There was like somebody below all of that to like
the One Below All.
Yeah, but like, oh man, yeah, sure. To me, it seemed like he wanted the One Below All to come up. Yeah, that's basically it. It's in Kidu, we see the new Hulk. I will say the art when he was transforming felt very it was very horrific. They didn't focus a lot on like the bigger picture, I will say, which I kind of prefer, honestly, when you just see it like very big and grotesque. It was very small and minuscule, and a little bit less on the grotesque side than anything. But overall, I think the art was still very, like, it still looked very good. You know, trying to fit some of that grotesque aspect in there, falling a little short, but you know, it still got its point across enough. And so yeah, I think this one was fine. You know, background of the eldest and in Kidu, the first Hulk. So I don't know. We'll give it an 8. That'll be nice.
Yeah, you know, I'm also going to give it an 8. Despite not remembering much of anything about this issue, I remember finishing the issue and being like, I like that. I'm going to give it an 8. I will say I like the design of the first Hulk as well. It's pretty much just the same as normal Hulk, but it has like battering ram, or not battering ram, but like ram horns on its head, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. That would lead us into the final issue that is not an event, which is the Power Fantasy #1. Written by Kieran Gillen, and the artist is Casper Wingard. So,
yeah, I got lost in the sauce on this one.
I did a little bit too, but I think that was intentional, at least partially.
Okay, because I was reading this and I was like, I have no idea what the hell is going on right now.
Yeah,
like I was lost.
They throw out some terms which clearly are well-known terms in universe, but we're not supposed to know what they are yet. So I will say I didn't know much about the series before reading it, but it's from writer Kieran Gillen, who I really trust. I've only really read his Eternals run, which I thought was I inherently don't like the Eternals, but I thought his is by far the best Eternals run period ever. I really liked the stuff and the concepts that he brought to that, even if I didn't love the execution all the time. And I really, really liked his Immortal X-Men run. Thought it was fantastic during the Krakoan era. Really, really loved that. So I saw he was writing a new indie book. I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And yeah, this issue, it's mostly just a lot of dialogue, right? It's a lot of dialogue introducing these characters primarily. Some of the stuff about the world as well, but mostly the characters. So basically, the premise of the world is there are 6 people with superpowers on the Earth, right? In this universe. And in this series kind of flips the whole superpower definition, because it's not so much just like, you know, a superhero kind of superpower thing, you know, where you can like phase through walls, or you can shoot webs out of your hands or whatever. You can stick to walls, you know. This is like, no. Everybody who's superpowered here has the basically destructive capacity of the entire nuclear arsenal of the US held kind of within them. And so, basically, if they ever, like, fight each other, the world's fucked. It'd be like if, like, the Cold War actually escalated into all-out war and just destroyed the world, is what it would kind of come to. And so, this issue is kind of dedicated to introducing a few of those characters and showing their relationships with each other and how they interact. So we have, I don't know any of their names off the top of my head, actually, but we see 2 of them talking at the start. So 2 people talking in New York in the 60s. And basically kind of, you know, jockeying back and forth with their philosophy on the whole thing. So, you know, one of them, I would say the main guy of this issue, he's talking about how actually it would be like the ethical thing for one of them to kind of rule benevolently and kind of make alliances with some of the others to make sure that they just kind of can steer the world like gods in a way that they find to be beneficial. Obviously, that's going to be subject to interpretation and everything, but they do seem to genuinely have the best interest of humanity at heart. And they want to try and steer them in that direction, right? So then we have, there's a big kind of debate about that. One of them almost kills the other one, but then they kind of realize that that's not really an option. And then it cuts to 1999, where that same character he's doing like an interview with somebody. This is where I got a little bit confused, because this person who's doing the interview seemingly also has powers, but on a much lower scale. So I don't know if she counts as one of the 6 or not. But then they're throwing around terms like the nuclear family. I'm like, that's where I was like, what is happening? And then there's another one of them that pops up, and they're having another kind of debate conversation. This dude has like a floating city that he kind of brings in, and then somebody tries to assassinate this guy, shoots him right through the chest with like a missile or something, a guided missile.
That I do remember. It wasn't somebody. It was the president.
It was like government. Yeah, right. And so it does hit him, but then he just heals immediately.
Yeah.
And so then basically the other guy is like, hey, let's not like lose our cool here. What do you need to not like blow up and go crazy? And essentially this he's like, he wants this other guy to kill everybody else who was in the room who made the decision to try and kill this other guy, as well as everybody who knew that they were planning to kill this other guy, as well as all the families of the people who were going to kill this guy. And that's where this other guy draws the line. He's like, I'm not going to kill all their families. And he basically, I don't know, he makes some deal with him, and then is like, all right, you're not going to be happy about this later, but fine, I'll deal with this for now. And that's kind of the issue. So I think, like, yes, there are some confusions, I think, about like what is this world, and some of the stuff, because it doesn't like hand feed you everything. It leaves some stuff open to further explanation. For me, this was about building up the characters and making them interesting, and hooking us into this world through them. And I think on that level, I think this absolutely works. I think the characters were immediately so fascinating, particularly the kind of main guy of this issue. I was just so hooked whenever he was talking, particularly in that first dialogue scene between him and that other person, but even just all throughout. And I think what really helps with that is he has some like very distinct dialogue quirks that really help kind of build up an idea of his personality. His whole thing is that he's all about the ethicality of things, right? Yeah. And kind of logistically working through things and figuring out what would be ethical or not for him to do. And so you have, like, very often he'll just be like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, well, why don't you want to do that? And he's like, because that would be unethical. I think that one kind of little thing, right? It's a small thing, sure. But I think it adds so much to building out this character and kind of showing his motivations and everything. That stuff is really working so well for me. Obviously, we don't see a whole lot of all the characters because it's an ongoing series. At least I think it's ongoing. And there's going to be more time to flesh out those characters later on down the line. But I think it really is cementing that. I think they're going to do a very good job of that just through this first guy here as well. And so I came away from this issue really, really loving it. Honestly, it was a serious contender for pick of the week. It's not, but I really, really love this issue. I think it was a really great intro to this series and this universe. And the dialogue was just really on point. And I think the characters were really engaging. So I loved this, and I'm really excited to see kind of where it goes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on this simply because I was, like I said, I was so lost reading this. I didn't realize there was a time skip at all. I thought those are two entirely separate characters.
No, that's the same guy.
Yeah. So at the beginning, I do remember at the beginning him talking about, like, ruling the world. Just I really was, like, so lost. That's where I started losing. I just getting so confused. Like, he'd just be talking, and then she'd just, like, turn into, like, this goddess form, and then she'd, like, turn back down, and then go straight back. Like, it was just like, okay, why? Like, I don't... oh, my gosh. And then, I didn't realize there was a time skip, and so then it went to that interview, and I was like, okay, this is an entirely new guy at this point. And then, and so I thought he didn't have powers, and he was talking about, like, the ethicality of people with powers, and I thought, and then he started, like, talking to that other guy on the space rock or whatever, the floating rock. And then I thought, oh, maybe he's, like, hiding the fact that he has powers. And then I was like, okay, so he's not hiding the fact that he has powers. I thought he was, like, a professor or something. And then he was talking about how, like, there's only 6 people with superpowers. But then that lady literally said that she can make, like, light or whatever. And so then I thought everybody that lived on that rock was the one that had superpowers. So that was, like, they're, like, safe haven in my eyes, right? That's what the other guy was saying, the one that got blown up.
Yeah, no, I thought that too. Yeah, I had the same thought.
And so that's kind of where I'm at, honestly. I like, that's kind of what I pieced. I don't really understand it, and there's a lot of stuff thrown at me. I think I just got so confused because I didn't realize there was a time skip. If I noticed there was a time skip, I don't think I would have been this confused.
Yeah,
to be honest. And then also, I don't. Okay, so his character, did he do a U-turn? Right, because he was talking about, like, taking over the world, right? Like, I'm not.
He was, but he was also like, well, okay, if I don't have everybody on my side, I can't really do it. Because that's what he was saying at the beginently. He's like, he's like, the way he saw it, there were 2 options. Either they take over the world kind of together and rule everything in their eyes benevolently, or they try and do a power balance between everybody where they're each kind of trying to keep their distance and not provoke each other so that they don't unleash this nuclear kind of capacity of power on each other and destroy the world in the process.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't plan on picking up more. I really I'm telling you, I don't think I've been more lost when I've been reading.
That cannot be true.
Wholeheartedly just did not understand a word, one thing that was happening this entire time. When I tell you I was lost. Seriously, just I barely understood that conversation at the beginning for some reason. That for me was the most convoluted conversation I've ever read. I was what? What the fuck?
See, I was on the edge of my seat reading that conversation. I was so engaged by that entire
I think I just kept getting distracted with this goddess form that kept appearing randomly that I was just okay, I'm not following this conversation at all. 5, hard to read.
Oh my god, okay, I'm giving it a 9. I thought it was amazing.
Hard to read, man. Made no sense.
Okay, well that would take us into the absolute power block of the episode, which in this week it's two issues, starting with Absolute Power number 2, written by Mark Waid, and the artist is Dan Reed. It's number 2.
Where am I?
Where are you? Are you on next month?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, this is Absolute Power number 2, written by Mark Waid and Dan Moore. The next core issue of the Absolute Power event, and really this issue centers around the brawl and all-out war at the Fortress of Solitude.
Yes.
So all the heroes are there. They've all kind of collected, all the ones that are still left and not scattered to the winds, and also not the depowered. Well, some are depowered actually, but the ones who have not been captured by Waller and the ones who are not currently just out just trying to escape her have come and formed up at the Fortress of Solitude. And then while they're there, they're trying to choose a leader. Ultimately, Nightwing kind of just elects himself. He's the only one who he makes an inspirational speech, and everyone's all right, yeah, he's our leader. Which, by the way, is the first time that I felt like the Titans have actually fucking been a substantial Justice League replacement. It's just with Dick doing that speech there. I thought that was pretty good. So then the Fortress of Solitude gets attacked. It gets attacked by one of the Amazer robots, as well as John Kent, Superman's son, who has been weaponized and mechanized and turned into this robot Kryptonian hybrid who is under the control of Waller. The control, though, it's not absolute, unlike Waller's power, which is absolute. It is absolute power, after all.
It is absolute power.
Yeah, but John is able to break free a couple times of her influence and kind of come back to his senses a little bit. That's the other thing. It's not an Amazing Robot. It's the Brainiac Queen who's also there. I forgot about that. So they have a big fucking fight. The heroes get their asses fucking kicked. They even try to they break open the city, the Brainiac shrunk city, which contained all the Kryptonians. Yeah, Kandor. They break that open, and that buys them a little bit of time, but they don't win from that.
Brainiac Queen just imitates Red Sun.
Yeah, and weakens them all. And then Dreamer, who's also there kind of on a stealth thing, ultimately just decides that she's had enough, and kind of, while the other heroes are opening a portal to get out of there, Dreamer then distracts the Brainiac Queen and John, and kind of single-handedly tries to beat them up, and not even really beat them up, but just hold them off, because Superman also activates the self-destruct of the Fortress of Solitude. So she holds them off long enough for the other guys to escape, and to also make sure that they are not followed by the Brainiac Queen and by John. And then it blows up with all of them in it. Brainiac Queen and John are both fine. Dreamer presumably dies. However, we don't see the body, so I'm positive she's not dead, or she'll be back at some point at least. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. John gets back under control of the Brainiac Queen, and they go hunting for everybody else again.
Yes.
So yeah, just really great, cataclysmic. This feels like such a huge fucking deal, and this has the opposite thing that Bloodhunt had for me, where just the entire time this event has been rolling, which has been about a month now, the stakes have just felt so high, but organically so. And I just feel where I didn't feel like there were any stakes really in Bloodhunt, this one, genuinely, it feels like every time the heroes turn around, something big is happening, and they're always on the back foot in a way that feels believable and genuinely significant. And that is helped by the fact that it's been built up so much in other books across this line, that it has made the fact that Waller can so easily just fuck all of them up just that much more believable. I did also read the one other thing, the very end, which is where Ollie is cataloging weapons in the Hall of Order, and then he's like, all right, it's time to go. So presumably he's going to turn on Waller soon. And we also know the at the end of the issue, it says like, next up, last stand on Themyscira. So that's presumably where they all teleported to. But yeah, really great, really solid stuff. The artwork is unsurprisingly amazing. It just all is, it's really coming together in a way that is satisfying, and it feels earned, and it feels like a legitimate, significant event. Like, this feels like it should be an event, even though actually, ironically, it kind of doesn't feel like an event. It just feels like the logical next big step and concluding chapter to this phase of the DC universe. And I think as a result of that, it's all the better for it. This is a very rock-solid issue for a very rock-solid event so far.
Yeah, no, I think this one was pretty good. Like you said, the whole, like, stakes thing is definitely felt like it felt very prominent. Specifically, there was a couple scenes in this one, like, in Plastics Man's arm actually getting snapped, like, bloodily snapped in half, like, the arm broken. I thought that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that was, like, for me, it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, when I saw that. Because, like, Plastic Man is, like, technically, like, he's, like, nearly invincible when he actually has his powers. And then one thing I found interesting was, well, the Titans are, in this a lot. One thing I noticed is that they never actually showed Raven's face.
Yeah, I did. I clocked that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they never showed her face, and I mean, I assume that's got to do with the their storyline that's happening right now in their comic. Yeah. But that was something I noticed and I wanted to throw out there. And then what else? Oh yeah, the reveal of John. It's John, right? John Kent. Yep. When we finally saw like the full extent of what Brainiac Queen has done to him, and just like Superman's reaction to it and stuff like that. And that ultimately is what actually sent Dreamer off, was seeing John, like what they did to him. And that's what ultimately sets her off to like betray Waller. And yeah, honestly, I doubt she's dead. I feel like she's been too involved in this to just like for her to die just like that.
And also a pretty recent character, so it would feel weird if they just kind of immediately killed her off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what else? No, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think Nightwing taking up like the mantle of like finally because even like the big three were arguing like that we never should have like gotten rid of the Justice League, but like you never really got rid of them. You just replaced them with the Titans. So for Dick to like stand and like take control of that, like it felt like, okay, perfect, this is exactly what we wanted, like basically for them, essentially, just for someone else to like be in charge besides us, so I felt that, yes, like also that was like, yes, it was very needed on their part. And so but besides that, I think this was so far this one was a very solid issue all around. I really liked this one, and so I gave this one an 8.
I'm giving this one an 8 as well. And that would bring us into the last issue for the episode, which is Batman number 151, written by Chip Zdarsky, with the art by Mike Hawthorne. And then there's also a backup story, which is written by Tini Howard, and the artist is Mariana Ignazi. So this is, Sebastian, if you don't mind me saying so, a Bat-Cat catastrophe, as the cover so aptly says. So essentially, it picks up off of an event that happened in Absolute Power number 2, where essentially Dick sends, or asks Bruce, he doesn't send him because then the Fortress Assault gets attacked, but he asks Bruce to go and find the mother box that Waller is holding. So Bruce goes, recruits Selina to go and help him, and they go to this island in Japan, it seems. I think it's part of Japan that they go to, and it's under the guise of these kind of billionaire, like, military private contractor investor people. So Bruce is saying, like, he wants to set up a new base for U.S. military training forces in this area, so that like his private contractors, in quotes, because they're not real. So that way the military would have more people to pull from with all of the Absolute Power stuff going on and everything. So he gets this like general to take him to the place where he thinks the mother box is. At which point the Suicide Squad pop up. It's most of them at first. It's not Dreamer, because she's off doing she's dead at this point, I guess. But it's Deadeye and Clock King and Black Alice, and then Bizarro shows up a little bit later. So they all have a bit of a fight. Selina runs ahead to try and kind of find the mother box, But instead, basically, Bruce is able to hold everybody off by tricking Bizarro into thinking there's like a game going on and there's a prize in the car and everything. So Bruce is able to slip away. He meets up with Selina and they find a boom tube instead of a mother box. They find a boom tube to this like other dimensional area. It's a pocket dimension, which is like Amanda Waller's like family's graves or something. It's like a mausoleum kind of thing from Chicago. While they're there, some dude shoots or tries to shoot at Bruce, and then there's the backup story, which is Harley Quinn. There's the Riddler. While she's in the sewers, she sees like one of Batman's like pagers essentially, and Riddler's on, and he's like, "Hey, come to the nuclear power plant, Batman, and solve my riddles, or I will kill everybody." And so Harley goes instead because Bruce is unavailable, and so is literally everybody else in the whole absolute power thing. She goes there, knocks out Riddler. They all manage to solve the riddles there together. Harley solves the first scientist there, solves the last. They shut down the reactor, and then Harley goes home to Ivy and is like, "What's up? We're just gonna chill." And that's where that is. Backup story, fine, actually. I didn't hate this. I thought I would, because I really, really do not like Teenie Howard's writing, as I have said a couple of times before on this podcast. Not a fan of her writing. But I think, like, Harley has such a distinctive voice that it actually is less irritating to me than some of her other characters. Like Catwoman, it was a boring story, and I don't feel like the character was, unique enough. Not even just in general, but within that run, the writing was not unique enough to really distinguish her from any other random character. Harley's voice is very unique, though, and so it's easier to write for, it feels like, to me at least. I think that's kind of what I felt here. So I didn't mind that. It wasn't great, but it was fine. And the main story, I think, was also pretty good. I actually didn't even mind Mike Hawthorne's art here, who I'm typically not a fan of, but I think for the most part it worked here fine enough. I think the mission was decent. I think it was, I think this works well as a tie-in, as fun little side quest diversion thing going on. I'm curious to see what's the deal with that other like mausoleum and gunsmith and all that. We do know, by the way, as well, that Chip Zdarsky is staying on this book post Absolute Power, so I'm really hopeful. Like, I hope it's good and everything. I don't know. It could be nothing. It could be another story like Failsafe was.
Yeah.
But I am glad, at least. I will say, like, if it ends up that like Failsafe comes back in the back part of this run, I'm gonna be pissed as all fucking shit. But I doubt that'll happen. It seems like it'll be a new story, because I want Chip Zdarsky to be able to do some new, unique stuff with this. And hopefully I'll really like it. And this issue, I think, has been pretty solid. Chip Zdarsky can write. He can write good comics, and I think this is a pretty solid indication of, his Batman run does not have to be bad. It doesn't have to be drawn out. It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be any of those problems that I have this run. This could be great, and I hope he sits in the book long enough to make it a really great series, in a run that's remembered fondly. And I think this issue is a solid way to do that, considering it's also even just a tie-in and it still works. So I mean, it's a good sign for where the series will go.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this one was fine. I had a bit of like when I first started this one, I had a bit of concern with like continuity wise. Like I thought it was like, okay, I'm assuming this takes place right after Absolute Power #2, but like he kind of doesn't mention the whole like fall of the Fortress of Solitude, so I was a bit worried about like when this actually happened. But I just, I kind of just assumed it took place afterwards. And yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty solid. The whole scuffle with the new Suicide Squad coming back to life or whatever, is like kind of like a robot,
Was he a robot?
Well, I mean, like, right, because like he when in the Suicide Squad run, I think it was number 4. I think was somebody shot him, right? Because with Dreamer and whatever, I'm pretty sure he died, right? I think is what it was. And so they brought him back to life, but he's got like these like cybernetic, he's got like an arm that's like just robotic. But kind of another standard heist one, less heisty, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know what to think of it, that part. But yeah, I think I think this one was a fine read. The boom tube, and then them going to like the mausoleum or whatever. And Waller is just always just thinking a step ahead. Like she always got backup plans for her backup plans and all that stuff. And so yeah, I'm monologuing. Not really. I don't know what that word means. I'm rambling at this point. I don't know. I think it's fine. Chip Zdarsky, the fact that he's staying on this one. If he stays with Failsafe, I will drop this. I am not.
It looks like it's going to be a Court of Owls / Riddler story next. I
do enjoy me Court of Owls. I do enjoy some Court of Owls. So that's intriguing. I do like them. Yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm just going to stop talking about it. But yeah, I think it was fine. 7. Yeah.
I think I'm also gonna give it a 7. Yeah. All right, that'll wrap up this episode of the show. Thank you, as always, everybody, for watching or listening on whatever platform you may be on. Next week, the next issue of Absolute Power Task Force 7. That tie-in has been actually pretty decent so far, so that not too bad at all. We have the next issue of Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. That is issue number 3. That's what I'm going to be making Sebastian read. I think this series has been fine, although I don't know how long I'm going to stick with it. There's stuff I like here. Conceptually, I like it a lot. But I think some of the particulars are a little bit iffy for me so far. Next issue of Geiger. I don't know, man. This series is all right. I'm not like amazed by it, but I don't hate it either. We'll see how long I stick with this one. There's a possibility I drop this one eventually, though. New issue of Green Lantern. Very good series. This is a tie-in Absolute Power, but the last one was very solid, so I'm not too concerned about that. The next issue of Immortal Thor as well. The conversation between Zeus and Thor. I have read this issue already. I have some thoughts on it, but I will save those for next week. New issue of Transformers. Next Underground Universe book. Very solid series. Cool stuff. Good stuff. Next issue of The Ultimates. The Ultimates is a great series. I'm very excited for that so far. That is honestly so far probably my favorite Ultimate Universe book, actually. I really like that series so far, even though it's only been 2 issues. We have Vengeance of the Moon Knight number 8. Mark is officially back. It's not a Blood Hunt tie-in anymore. I'm pumped for this. I think it looks very solid. This series is very solid, so I'm excited to see Mark back here. The next chapter of Infinity Watch with Wolverine Annual. Sebastian's favorite character, Power Stone, is back. He's fighting Wolverine. I don't fucking care about this series, man. This event, rather, I should say. But whatever. We're reading it, so fine, I guess. The next X-Men book is starting. First of all, we actually just have X-Men number 2 next week. But we also have the next new X-Men series in X Factor, which is like the U.S. government-sanctioned X-Men team. Apparently, it's a very satirical book, which makes sense as it's written by Mark Russell, who is known on this podcast for writing the hit series Rumpus Room, Sebastian. It's from the writer of Rumpus Room. So I'm curious, I guess. I'm not like overly excited for that, but I'll definitely check it out and see how it is. So you got anything on your end that you would like to shout out?
Batman and Robin, number 12, I believe. And Gotham Sirens number 2. All
right. Well, yeah, as mentioned, that would do it for the episode. Thank you everybody as always for watching or listening. If you are on YouTube, you can of course like the video if you enjoyed it. You can also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of our videos, and you can also hit the bell notification so that you get notified when we post new videos and you do not miss any ones in future. You can also leave us a comment letting us know what you think about some of the recent comics, some of the stuff you're excited for coming up, and if we have any we are not reading that we should be reading. And then you can also follow the show over on Spotify if you'd like to not miss an episode over there. And you can also get in contact with us through our email address, which is earthsmightiestcomicsPod@gmail.com. That is all one word. So yeah, once again, thank you everybody for watching or listening. As always, we appreciate it, and we will see you in the next episode.